Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and this is the new 2026 Surface Laptop 8th edition. This comes in two different size variants, 13.8 inch that I have here. You can get a 15-inch model, and it starts at $600 more than last year. It starts at $1,599.99. It goes up to $3,449.99. You can get an X2 Plus 10-core CPU or an X2 Elite 12-core CPU. You can get 16 gigs of RAM all the way up to 64 gigs of RAM, or 512 and 1 terabyte as far as the SSD. We have some new colors you may have already noticed here. This is the Jade color. You also have Dune, Platinum, and Black. Let's flip it over and take a look at the specs here. So you'll see this is the 13.8 inch, and it has the Snapdragon X2 Elite, 16 gigs of RAM, and 512 gigabytes of storage. Let's go ahead and open it up. So on the front here, we have this little pull tab. And let's try that again. There we go. And let's open up the box here. So it opens just like any of the previous ones. Let's pull the laptop out and see what we get in the box here, and then we'll go over everything new. So here we have what looks to be some documentation, a few things in the box here. So warranty it looks like, and this one is just sort of an overview of what ports we have and everything else. This one here, again, looks like a warranty card. The only other things we get in the box is the AC adapter here, so let's go ahead and open this up, see what kind of power we have that's included. You can go to higher power and fast charge this, but let's see if I can get this one open. There we go. And this does not want to pull apart properly, so let's get that out of here. And this is a 39-watt power adapter, so you can see that here. So let's move this aside and take a closer look at the laptop itself. So here's the Surface Laptop. Let's go ahead and take the wrapper off of it. And again, this is the new Jade color, so it gives you an idea what it looks like. We've got 4 rubber feet on the bottom. Looks pretty much like what we would see before. We've got our Surface adapter here on the right here, the port, and then on the left-hand side, we have USB-A and 2 USB-C ports, along with a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. So these USB-C are USB 4, and then also the USB-A is a 3.2 port. Again, a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack and Surface Connect. Let's go ahead and open it up here. Take a look and see what we've got. So it is anodized aluminum, the same as last year. Looks pretty nice. Of course, we have a color matching keyboard. We'll take a look at the keyboard in a little bit, a large trackpad, and I think this looks really nice. Of course, you do have the Dune option, Platinum and Black, if you want just plain colors, but this is a nice color option that we haven't seen from Microsoft before. So it looks pretty good. It didn't turn on its own, so maybe it's not charged, but let's go ahead and power it up here and see if it turns on. If not, we'll plug it in here. So nothing here. Let's go ahead and plug it in. Now you don't have to use this adapter. You can use USB-C as well, but let's go ahead and plug it in there. See if we can get some power. There we go, and it powers on. It's a pretty reflective screen though, if you can see here. No coating on it or anything like that. But internally, we do have that Snapdragon X2 Plus, and it has 16 gigs of RAM, like I mentioned. We also have a replaceable SSD internally, and it has the Qualcomm Hexagon with 80 TOPS, up from 45 TOPS of last year. It also has a Qualcomm Adreno GPU, and according to Microsoft, it has 53% faster graphics performance than previous generation. So we'll have to test that out. So again, it's still booting up here. So as it's booting up, the overall weight is 2.96 pounds or 1.34 kilograms, and it still has the Omnisonic speakers with Dolby Atmos and dual studio mics with voice focus. So let's wait for this to boot up, and then we'll talk about the screen as well and get it set up. So there we go. It's booted up a little bit to the welcome screen. Let's go ahead and get it set up. So we'll go ahead and continue in English here. Walk through the setup. Then you pick your location. We'll pick the United States. That's where I am. So we'll give this just a moment here. And then it says, is this the right keyboard layout or input method? We'll click yes. Do you want to add a second keyboard layout? We'll skip that for now. We'll click next. And it says checking for updates. So we'll give it a moment to do that. Now it finally says getting things ready for you. It didn't tell me there was an update or not just yet. Now it says please review the license agreement. We have to accept this. Then we can name your device. So we'll put in Surface Laptop 8, and then click Next. Now it's checking for Windows updates. Now it's actually updating, so we can either have it update or update later. So I'll let this finish. The update completed, and it took about 45 minutes, so it was a very long update, but let's go ahead and get signed in as it says unlock your Microsoft experience. So what I'll do is I'll put in my username. It's signing me in, and it says, do you want to use your face to sign in faster and more securely? Because we have a webcam, we can do that, so let's set it up. And let me move the display here. It says keep looking. And I'm all set. So now it's all set up. We'll go ahead and tap next. It is a touch screen. And it says got it. Now set up a pin. So I'll create a pin. Now it says choose privacy settings for your device. You can use location or not any of these at all. And we'll turn off personalized offers. And we'll just click accept here and continue. Now it says welcome back, Aaron. It recognizes everything, and it shows the last backup was from June 18th of 2026. And then we can customize this with all the different applications and folders we want, or different apps or not. So we'll click more options here, and you'll see my PC is listed. Now I'm going to set this up as a new PC because I don't want all the extra stuff on it that I had before. That will just take more time. So let's go ahead and continue and see what we get here. Now it says, let's customize your experience. What are you using it for? Development, entertainment, gaming. Well, you try it for a little bit of gaming here. You could use it for school, but we'll pick creativity and maybe business, and then click accept. You could have skipped that if you like. And then it says, use your phone from your PC. So I can set this up a little bit later if I want to use that. Now it says, back up your phone's photos to keep them safe. We'll skip that for now. And it says, always have access to your recent browsing data. We'll click accept. Now it's asking if I want to use a free trial of Microsoft 365. We'll decline for now. Now it says get more cloud storage with Microsoft 365. We'll click decline. Now it's asking if I want to use recall. Now this was a bit controversial when it was available, and you can easily find what you need and kind of scroll back in time. We won't save for now. I need to keep all the storage that I have here, 512 gigabytes. And now we're at the home screen. So this is the default setup. I haven't changed anything, and I've set it up as new. Now, as far as this display goes, this is a 13.8-inch PixelSense touchscreen HDR LCD display, according to Microsoft. It has a resolution of 2304 by 1536 with 201 pixels per inch. It's a 120 hertz display this time around, and it's also 600 nits. It supports Dolby Vision IQ, and it's not Gorilla Glass, but it's basically strengthened glass, according to them. Now, one of the good things this year is because we have the updated processor, we can support up to 3 4K 60Hz displays using DisplayPort 1.4. So that's something that we have available on this, where we only could support 2 displays last time. Now we do have the Surface Studio camera in the top here. It's 1080p, Windows Hello recognition, no difference there really. And of course, when it comes to the keyboard, we'll check that out in just a moment. But again, it's nice and color matched. It looks pretty good. Now we do have a 54 watt-hour battery, up to 20 hours of video playback, 16 hours of active web usage, and it supports 60 watt fast charging. Now we don't get a 60 watt charger. As I mentioned before, we've got this 39 watt charger that I showed here, and that will do the job. But if you want to charge it faster, you can. Also, we have Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5.4. So all of that's included. Now, as for the keyboard, let's take a look at that, and then we'll take a look at some programs and gaming, and let's go ahead and go into let's try something simple, Notepad maybe. So we'll go into Notepad and let's check out the keyboard, and let me have you take a listen to it as well. So that gives you an idea of what the keyboard sounds like. It has good travel, good feedback. And if I bring this up here, you can see that here. So just like all of the Surface laptop keyboards before, it's got a very nice feel to it, feels very high quality. When it comes to the trackpad, the same is true. So if we press it there is a haptic click or maybe a physical click, but it feels very good. You can push anywhere here and you get a click anywhere around the trackpad. So it's really nice, has a great feel, feels very similar to a MacBook. And speaking of a MacBook, I wanted to compare the actual size. So let's go ahead and disconnect the power for now. We'll close it here. And this is a 13-inch MacBook Air. So this gives you an idea of overall size. If maybe you were switching or considering a different size, so size side by side, this gives you an idea. So the Surface laptop's slightly bigger. Of course, it has a slightly bigger display as well, and it gives you an idea of their overall size. So you do get some more ports on the Surface laptop, but again, thickness a little bit thicker here as well. So you can see, again, side by side at the thickest point, the MacBook Air is slightly thicker here, but when we get to the other side, they're about the same. Maybe the Surface is a little bit thicker here. So it just depends on which side we're looking at, and it seems to be fine. But it feels very nice, very high quality. Also, the keyboard does have a backlight to it, so let's turn off the lights here, and you'll see that. So they turn on automatically, but we can adjust the brightness here. We have a couple different steps where we can adjust that. So if we want the brightest setting, leave it there. And again, you can see that nice backlight that we have there. I'll turn the lights back on and it will turn off automatically. Of course, we can adjust the brightness of the display here. Everything else is basically what you would expect. You've got touchscreen capability if you want to use that, and it looks pretty good overall. Now, if we go into Explorer here, File Explorer, we'll take a look at this PC, and you'll see I have 411 gigabytes free. Now, it did start to restore some of this on its own, so maybe it's taking up additional space. You can see some things on the desktop here, but in general, it should use typically the amount of space you would want, and then you can see typically Windows 11 here. So not really any surprise. I know many people don't like Windows 11. Now, as far as this display goes in PWM, let's go ahead and check that. So I'll use a slow motion camera here. And given that this is an LCD, I didn't expect it to have PWM, and it doesn't. So this shouldn't bother your eyes at all. So it looks pretty good overall. Now, when it comes to the speakers, let's see if we can take a listen to that. Now, as for the sound, I have some royalty-free music here. Let's go ahead and take a listen and see how loud it gets as well. The speakers are decent for a laptop like this. Not the best I've heard. Bass is not very pronounced, but it sounds decent and would work for media or whatever you're watching or viewing or working on. Now, when it comes to apps and games, let's go ahead and try that out. Of course, things like Microsoft Word should be just fine. So if we open up Word, for example, give it a second to load. So we'll go into a blank document. Of course, you'll see that. And this is quite reflective. That's probably one of the downsides of this display. While it's nice having the touchscreen built in, of course, it is very reflective. But as far as other applications and how it handles it, let me go ahead and try out some games and see what we've got here. Now, the first thing I thought we'd do is run Crystal Mark just to see what kind of speeds we're dealing with here. So we're running right now. Let's see what we get as far as the SSD goes. Crystal Mark finished, and we have 3,531 megabytes per second read speed and 3,369 megabytes per second write speed. Now, as far as the Geekbench scores, I thought we'd run those just so we can compare them to things such as a MacBook Air. So we'll go ahead and run the CPU benchmark, but you can see the X2 Elite is here. Let's go ahead and run this and see what we get. Benchmarks completed, and we have 2,519 for single core, 13,664 for multi-core. So again, this is just to give you an idea of what it's capable of, just running basic benchmarks. Let's see if it will run some games though. So let's go ahead and close out of this. And I installed two different games. One is Cities Skylines, and the other one is Call of Duty, at least the latest version, just to see if they'll even run on here. Let's go ahead and run Cities Skylines, and this is Cities Skylines 1. So it looks like Cities Skylines works. It actually lets me zoom in and out. It's a little bit choppy to start, but you can see we can rotate and everything else like you would expect. And it's working much better than I would have expected. However, it is a little bit choppy, of course. So it does work. It's not incredible, but it is something that you could play on here if you wanted to. And I have it just set to default settings. So the default settings probably aren't too great here. You can see we're in 1600 by 900 resolution, and we have all of the textures on high quality. Let me see if I can bump this up to a higher resolution, see what it looks like, and see if it can handle it. So Let's make sure we're bumped up there. It looks a little bit better, and now that it's loaded, it's definitely a little bit faster. I don't know that it would run Cities Skylines 2, though. So if we go into a more busy area that I built up a while ago, this is just a random one I loaded from one of my saves. It actually seems to work okay, so definitely playable. Now, I tried to get Call of Duty to run. It won't run at all. It just keeps crashing over and over, giving me an error code. And you can stream games like Forza, for example. So if you have Game Pass, you could stream it. You, of course, could probably run it, but you would probably be better off streaming it. So this really isn't meant for gaming, unless it's some light gaming. Maybe you could play Fortnite on it. Cities Skylines seems to run okay, but nothing very intensive. Minecraft would probably be fine, but it really just depends what you're doing. Of course, this is meant to be more of a productivity machine, maybe creativity with Microsoft Clipchamp, things like that. But when it comes to other tasks, you can run specific apps such as Figma here. So we have Figma, but specifically for ARM. So if we go into this one, this is the exact same canvas that I actually loaded in the previous video last year at the same time. So of course you can use the same thing, zoom in and out, maybe move things around. You'll see it moves very fast. No real issues running, of course, native ARM apps. And I think we'll see more and more of this as more and more people switch to ARM. So that's something we'll see more of in the future. But as far as gaming, I'd probably not use this for that. But also you could use it for things such as CoPilot with creating images. That's actually something they show when it comes to the laptop. So if we want to create an image, for example, maybe make a jade green Surface laptop sitting on a table next to the beach, and let's see what it can do. We'll give it a moment. It says setting your scene by the shore. So the image is completed. You can download it. You'll see it's a jade green laptop by the beach. Not exactly the same color here, but close. That gives you an idea. Of course, you can use that with CoPilot as advertised. And of course, this would be perfect for Excel and Word and things like that. So regular day-to-day use. However, they are coming out with an Ultra PC that would be much faster, of course, if you're going to use creative work, do things like that. So if that's of the utmost importance for speed, you may want to opt for that. One thing I wanted to mention is while I was using this running benchmarks and showing you the different applications, it didn't heat up at all. It stayed nice and cool, no real issues there. Now, of course, if I was really pushing it, I'm sure we would get some heat generated here, but it looks like maybe they've done a good job with thermals in general, but I didn't hear any fan noise just doing those basic tasks. So running Cities Skylines or even Geekbench, I didn't hear anything. And again, it's staying nice and cool to the touch. The only heat I felt at all was just over the keyboard. Now, if you're wondering if you should buy a Surface Laptop 8th edition for 2026, well, I like the color and the different availability and the new processor, but it's really hard to recommend at $1,600. There's other options out there, whether that's a MacBook Air or other Windows PCs, depending on what you need to run, that probably cost about the same and might give you better hardware. However, the overall build quality and reliability of Surface products, at least in my experience, have been excellent, and I really like the form factor, the attention to detail with the keyboard, the touchscreen, and the displays. They're all excellent, but again, there's other options out there. So I would recommend maybe picking up the previous generation if you're going to just use it for school with documents. And if you wanted something for gaming, I would opt for a completely different computer for that. And so that's pretty much everything with the new Microsoft Surface Laptop 8th edition for 2026. I do like this color. Of course, we do have other options as well, but let me know what you think of it in the comments below. There's also a new Surface Pro, so that's something maybe we'll take a look at. And if you want me to test anything on this, let me know in the comments below. Of course, if you haven't subscribed already, though, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.